When spooky season rolls around, I like to delve into the darker side of literature. I enjoy the horror genre because it explores the outrageous, awful, and terrifying experiences that often are part of the human condition, but are considered too dramatic and, dare I say, impolite for more realistic and literary fiction. And while horror often involves some element of the supernatural, I find that this device, used by a skillful author, can often reveal deep psychological truths. So today I wanted to share some of the creepy novels I've enjoyed recently. Let's get into it. Charlotte is a high school senior who has two goals: to crush the SATs tomorrow and to be the perfect babysitter for two 6-year-old twins tonight. After reassuring the parents that the children are in good hands, Charlotte settles down to feed the kids dinner and put them to bed. But it soon becomes clear that something is very wrong with the house. It turns out this house was the scene of a horrific murder 11 years ago, and the events of that night aren't over yet. This creepy story is one of the most inventive narratives I've read recently. It takes a turn into wild and surreal events that test Charlotte's mettle, not only as a babysitter, but as a human being. Also of note is that it was released only as an audiobook. Yes, I do consider audiobooks reading. It's a great spooky story to listen to when you're alone on a dark night. This novel follows a black family living in 1950s Florida when racial segregation was enforced by Jim Crow laws as well as community vigilantes who terrorized black people without consequences. The blatant racism of the justice system is demonstrated immediately at the beginning of the book. After a minor confrontation with an older white boy, 12-year-old Robbie Stevens is sentenced to 6 months at a reformatory school. The school is run by a sadistic man who enjoys his job because of the broad leeway it gives him to mistreat boys, enabled by the obedience and fear of his employees, as well as the tendency of law enforcement and the state to look the other way. The school itself is bad enough, but Robbie also has the psychic talent of seeing ghosts, or haints. The school is suspiciously full of haints, and Robbie soon realizes that he is in very real danger. Meanwhile, his family on the outside is forced to devise increasingly desperate plans to free Robbie before it's too late. This novel is impressive on so many levels. It's a vivid and moving portrait of a family with deep love and loyalty for each other. It has an unusual take on ghosts, different from many other horror novels, in that the haints Robbie encounters are complex characters with their own motivations, and he's forced to negotiate with them in order to survive. Finally, in some ways, the novel subverts its genre, because its scariest moments are not necessarily the parts about the supernatural hauntings, but the realist parts that explore the horrifying realities of the Jim Crow era. The protagonist of this gothic tale is Adelaide, a black woman who moves to Montana in 1915 to start a homestead. The only thing she takes with her is a mysterious trunk which contains a dark secret and is the reason she had to flee from California. Adelaide has to contend not only with the difficulties of starting a farm in the harsh wilderness, but also the curse haunting her family. As she meets other homesteaders and searches for friendship, she is also faced with the question of who she can really trust. This gripping story is filled with fascinating world building and unforgettable characters. I really enjoyed this one. This is an oldie but a goodie. It is absolutely worth reading this horror classic if you have not already done so. And if you've only watched the movie, you should certainly read the book. The movie actually leaves out nearly all of the backstory that makes this book so harrowing and so worthwhile. I find the book to be much more disturbing than the movie, so be prepared. This novel follows the Torrance family, two young parents, Jack and Wendy, and their 5-year-old son, Danny. They move to the Overlook Hotel in the mountains of Colorado when Jack takes a job as winter caretaker. There, they will live in complete isolation for the winter since snowstorms cut off their access to any other towns. This is something of a last chance job for Jack. He previously had a promising start as an up-and-coming writer and an English teacher at a fancy boarding school, but he lost everything due to his struggle with alcoholism and anger management. After he got fired, an old drinking buddy hooked him up with the hotel caretaker gig. Jack hopes he can turn things around by finishing his current writing project and focusing on his family. But there's just one problem. Danny has a significant psychic talent which activates a certain malicious energy the hotel has been hoarding over its many decades of existence. A lot of really bad things have happened at this hotel. The hotel starts to work on the family, especially Jack. His worst impulses are reawakened, and we learn that they are actually rooted in some of his childhood experiences and memories of his own father. Are you a horror fan, or do you prefer other genres? How are you celebrating Halloween this year? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.